So in this video I'm going to be addressing an email which I received from one of the long-term viewers. The content of the email is in actual fact in the comments in sections under the video, which is titled allow me to do a little of your thinking, suggesting that most people are too busy to really give anything any real thought. They're too distracted, and so I'm going to be addressing why this is a constant theme on the Awake and Brave channel. This whole thing that there is no physical matter, life is Maya, nothing is as what it appears to be, and our ego is a fiction creator, and we can't really believe anything. And what is knowledge? Is there any truth? I've maintained that there's no truth. I've never ever said that there's any truth in 14 years of YouTubing. Because I consider it to be a subjective experience, and so you may feel that you have truth, you know truth, but we all know that changes. What we once considered to be true turns out to be fiction. We were deceived, we were blinded, we didn't have the whole story, this, that and the other. And so that's it, isn't it? That's it in a nutshell. Where do you start? It's just, you know, there's repeatedly 8.5 billion people on the planet. We've all got our own subjective conscious experience. We all see our own worlds. We do not share a world. We only share a general consensus of a world. There's no such thing as one physical world that everybody experiences. That's complete fallacy. It's complete nonsense. And I'm sure, you know, everybody can grasp that on some simple level. Hey, look over there. Look at that purple car. Purple is blue. Purple is green. Purple is brown. You know, all these different variations alone with people's colour perception. We don't see the same world, people. Our world is entirely in here. Every single thing we see is in the back here, in our visual cortex, in complete darkness. So how do we see light? How do we create this three-dimensional experience? It's a phenomenon that no scientist has ever managed to get their heads around. It's seriously exceedingly perplexing life. So anyway, when I'm speaking about, you know, life is Maya, well, again, Maya means that life is a variety of illusion in that it isn't what you think it is. And then when we speak about the quantum world, when they say that, well, you know, we can't find any matter, it's kind of perplexing. There's only an illusion of matter when we've got a density of energy. There's no matter, there's no physical matter in the energy, but when the energy is dense enough, it appears to be physical to us. So it's all an illusion, it's all Maya, isn't it, people? But the uneducated person in this realm, the uninformed person, as far as Buddhist philosophy and quantum physics goes, and the spiritual realm and all that, people who aren't informed in that, they only know the so-called physical world, and so of course they're going to dismiss at any level as nonsense and preposterous, people which are espousing things like I'm espousing. But what I've got at my back, as I'm always mentioning, are some of the greatest brains that have ever lived on the planet, i.e. the founder of quantum physics, Max Planck, i.e. Albert Einstein, and there's a whole myriad of other physicists and philosophers that have very, very well-formed opinions about the world not being a physical reality, and most certainly not being as what people think it is, because we all think it's different, we all see it different, we all experience it different on every single level. Just simple things like, hey, taste this, that tastes bitter. Tastes alright to me. Oh, this is really, really sweet. I love it, I do. And all these things. And so, is there any general physical world out there? Is there anything which is corporeal and tangible and not debatable in any shape or form? No, there's not. There's just simply not. And even when we get down to the finest nitty-gritty of our best scientists on the planet, they can't agree. So, there are lots of disagreements with the non-physical world thing. There's all different sorts of theories out there. There's, non-dualism, there's the dualism, there's the idealism, there's all different sorts of ways in which we can interpret the world. Many people consider that we have a tiny slither of physically inducing vibration. So this vibration that we appear to be in is just a very, very thin sliver on the spectrum of vibration. And so it just so happens that, one chance in a gazillion that there's so-called matter in the cosmos. Because that's what they say. They say that the chances of having a physical cosmos are so astronomically slim, because in the Big Bang, then there's matter created, and then there's antimatter, and they're supposed to cancel out each other, so we don't have anything at all. But for some unfathomable reason, there was one tiny little particle of matter, which gave rise to the physical cosmos. It just all sounds absurd, doesn't it? Of course, it all is absurd, and who are we to try to get our heads around this? But anyway. Because there's quite a few people that have a problem with the non-physical world because it's so counterintuitive. Well, for those of you that are not versed in all the names that I speak about and the perspectives of life, then, the best I can do is just try to explain a little bit by, my videos. But, the best thing is to do your own research. If you think something is very problematic as far as your cognition's concerned, then do your research and, don't be biased about it. Don't just be looking for things that are going to tell you that there's a physical world. If you go on Google and you see one excerpt, that tells you there's a physical world and quantum mechanics is just, insane. See, there you go, that's what it says on Google. Read everything and really look for it. You have to look for it, people, because this isn't in people's faces. It's never really been in people's faces. It's very, very obscure, esoteric stuff that the vast majority of people don't know anything about. They don't know nothing about quantum mechanics. So, I said in one of my videos that when you go on Google and you put in is there any physical matter in the cosmos, then you're going to get a whole stream of stuff which is suggesting that there is. And very little which is suggesting that there isn't, simply because it's too incredible for the vast majority of people to comprehend. Now, Google is just for the average Joe. You go and have a look to see what the average Joe's supposed to think. It's not a quantum physicist forum, and so you're not going to be getting that sort of level of depth of information. If you want to learn about quantum quantum physics, then I suppose you have to go to their forums, or you have to read their papers, or you have to buy their books, or something like this. You know, you ain't going to get it in the tabloids. You ain't going to get it on the first page of Google. But what you do get on the first page of Google is that Einstein says, yeah, it's pretty fucked up shit. I find it very difficult to accept, but the math says that, and I can't refute the math, because, you know, they all deal with math, don't they? It's all about math as far as they're concerned. And experiments, it's about empirical experiments. And the experiment that's been conducted, first been started in 1801 apparently, the double slit experiment, and it's been performed all over the world, you know, hundreds of thousands of times, and they come up with the same results time and time again, which suggests that consciousness collapses the fundamental probability of the cosmos. The cosmos, the quantum field, is a field of probability, and there is no mass to it at all. The idea of mass comes about when consciousness, conscious entity is looking, observing the world. Then consciousness collapses the probability of the wave function into a physical world. Some of it, because lots of it, you know, it doesn't collapse. It doesn't collapse spirits. It doesn't collapse, you know, apparitions. It doesn't collapse many phenomena that the human being has experienced. It just collapses this potential of condensed energy, which appears to be solid to the human being. So, this viewer said, interesting, I have never looked up what the consensus about the existence of matter is. What I have a problem with is not really about whether or not matter exists, but what the thought of either world view causes in the minds of the majority of people, and the effect it has in the world we are all to share, which happens to affect my experience of the world. So, okay, if someone has an opinion like me, and I say, well, you know, as far as I'm concerned, there's no physical matter here. Why do I say that? Well, I say it because of my experience. I've had experiences of entering into what appears to me to be different dimensions of consciousness, and in those dimensions there is no physical matter, i.e. the astral world, the dream world, the psychedelic world, when we see all these things which under normal circumstances are not there. You know, gods in the sky which seem to be absolutely human-like, made out of cloud. There is no distinguishing features about them except they are made out of cloud, exactly the same as you'd see a human being, with all the nuances and shades and differences and everything, and they feel real. There's a consciousness to them. And so how does one deal with that? Well, when you've had experiences like that, you start reading and looking around, and then people will tell you, well, it's not a physical world, and you go, oh, okay, tell me more then. And then you'll read about you know, the quantum world, you'll read about entanglement, you'll read about the double slit experiment, you'll read about Schrodinger's cat, you know, and all these very, very bizarre things which mathematically seem to make perfect sense, but to our logical, rational human minds, they're just absurd. And so we have to question, well, math seems to be so on point in most other regions, even though we've got Gödel's theorem where math breaks down at some stage, but generally math is the language that is dependable upon for the human being in our world. And so very few people are prepared to decry the efficacy of math. So this is why scientists, when they get all these things with their math and their experiments, well, you know, their logical mind is kind of like, well, we have to put the logical mind aside, because obviously there's something going wrong in our level of computation here, we can't get our heads around it. Maybe we've not got the wherewithal to be able to do this, but the math says this. Holy fuck. And this has been perplexing the brilliant brains for many, many years. So, if people say this and people get in a tizzy about it and they become afraid about it, well, that's because they're ignorant to it. They should learn about it. And by the time they've learned about it, you see, the only thing to fear is fear itself. And so, you know, I'm suggesting that, you know, this person, you know, is premised in fear. Premised in fear of what he feels, how his world would be if he accepted there's no physical matter, and in fear of what other people might think. Everybody might be jumping off a cliff. Well, I mean, these experiments, the double slit experiment and that, like I say, started in 1801 apparently, but most certainly came about in a new revamped method in the very early 1900s. And people haven't been jumping off bridges. I've never heard of a single person that said, oh, well, quantum physics says this, so I'm going to jump off a bridge. So I think that is a completely naive and unfounded notion. It's quite preposterous to suggest, and other people have suggested to me, I'm spreading misinformation and it's very dangerous. Well, I mean, lots of things are dangerous to the ignorant person, and I reply to them, you're dangerous. Your level of ignorance is very, very dangerous, because it's your level of ignorance which probably would, you know, coerce, allow somebody to jump off a bridge, because of the stupidity which is going on with unfounded fears. So, most people don't know the intricacies of what reality is. Well, nobody knows the intricacies of what reality is. Absolutely nobody knows it. We're only fucking having a shot in the dark. And, you know, this has only been in very recent times as far as humanity is concerned. But what they do know is what they hear from the top-down system, beginning from scientists. Well, I discount that, I discredit that, because they don't know that either. They may think they know, and if they hear something, do they really know the implications of that? Do they really know the intricacies? No, they don't know. So the ignorance works equally well on both sides, whether they don't know, whether they think they do know. Unless they are very, very scientifically inclined and can get their heads around the math, or have had personal experiences within this realm, then of course they don't know. So if they don't know, well, I don't know. So it doesn't affect them. It doesn't affect them in any shape or form, because they forget about it within 2 seconds, and they go and kick their toe, stub their toe, and it's, you know, thus I refute you, one of the philosophers said, when a philosopher said to him there's no physical matter. So the other philosopher kicked a stone and said, thus I refute you. You know, ow, you know, pain, you know, connection, physical things going on. But that's on the macro level with the interpretation of human consciousness. It isn't on the quantum level, you see. There is no matter on the quantum level. So they will not hear we've done some experiments and gotten strange results that cannot explain. Well, why won't they hear that? I mean, that's basically all physicists ever say. We think, we hypothesize. They're never saying categorically, hey, guys and girls, we've discovered that there is absolutely no physical matter in this world. They don't do that, you see, because they have to leave a level to be found to be wrong. This is the whole premise of science. They're always open to it. And so it's kind of like, yeah, we've done this experiment and it says that there's no physical matter. Just saying, you know. It appears that there is no matter, but rather an interpretation from the science polarizers like nothing matters. Why would people hear that? That's your interpretation of what you think other people would hear. And this is the thing, you see, we have to be very, very careful about this. Our interpretation of what other people may think. There's 8.5 billion other people, apparently, and are you assuming that you have an insight to their level of consciousness and how they're going to be thinking thinking about these things? It's just an idea you've got in your mind, isn't it? You're just thinking, well, I mean, yeah, he's probably going to scare people, and they're probably going to think that life is pointless. And so, what's the point? Well, if you think life is pointless, you might just want to jump off a bridge. Then, it's a simple case of induction. You are making inferences, wild in interpretations, which don't really have any grounds. This totally changes the actions of the people receiving the information, which influences this reality. Well, I mean, it doesn't influence this reality. It may influence the person's psychology. And that's all anybody's got to go on, their individuated perception or interpretation or absorption or acknowledgement or knowledge of anything. It's all a subjective experience, and so there's nothing general about this, people. I think the theory of there being no matter is ground zero for most of what we see today. Well, I mean, I'm assuming you mean by ground zero that it's like 9/11 ground zero. It's a catastrophe. The destructiveness is why I propose that this is propaganda. Is it a silent weapon for a silent war? Well, people say everything. Every single day, if you listen to the news, you're going to get equal polarities saying, opposing stuff. If you listen to the whole conflict in Ukraine and Israel and Palestine, and then if you listen to what Hezbollah are saying, if you listen to what Iran are saying, if you listen to what the Democrats are saying, what the Republicans are saying, we've got everything in between. Absolutely one extreme to the other and all in between. So it's all going on, people, every single day. So why should anyone pick one particular bit and decide they're going to kill themselves? Or decide that life's, pointless? It's not a reasonable thing to assume. The destructiveness of that proposal could be propaganda. Well, there's a lot of propaganda going on. I think everything in some degree is propaganda. Everything that anybody asserts is for a reason. Now, if scientists assert certain things, their assertions are premised on their state of consciousness and what they consider they've discovered, and they want to impress upon the public how important their discovery is, how important they are, and how important funding them is. So that's what it's all about, people. It's all about promulgating and promoting what you know to have other entities give you their energy, viewers or supporters, funders, whatever. It's all about energy. And so you look across the board, whoever's shouting about whatever, it's all because they want energy, and usually it's that sort of energy. It is similar to back in the day when illiterate people had to trust others who could read to recount it truthfully. So trusting others if there's something to be read. This document says this, that and the other, and everyone's got a blind faith. Okay, yeah, well, of course there's that going on. Today, the clergy are the scientists, and we are the peasants having to blindly trust them because we are illiterate in mathematics and broke. Today the clergy are the scientists, or the scientists are the clergy. I think that's probably what you are inferring there. Of course, look, the Catholic Church completely bastardized the Bible. They rewrote it. The King James Version, rewrote it in such a significant way that really changed what Christianity stood for. Because what they did was that they made God out of Jesus. And if truth be known, Jesus never said he was God. He never said he was the Son of God. That's a misinterpretation, and it's one that's been contrived. Jesus said, I am a son of God, just like you are a son of God. We're all sons of God. You listen to the book of Thomas. They can listen to the Gnostic writings, because anything in the Bible has been perverted by the powers that be, who want to take control over human psyche. So, you know, you see, what I say about that is, if you're inferring that the double slit experiment is propaganda, I will say, well, if it was propaganda, it would be pasted on every billboard around the world, and the first 10 pages of Google would be expressing how true it is, and that there is, in actual fact, no physical matter, and nothing is real, and you're not real, and they really would bang on about it if it was propaganda. But it's so obscure, it's out there, and only geeks are interested in it. So in my estimation, it doesn't make it propaganda. In actual fact, the propaganda is that there is a physical world and you will die, which isn't a reality, because there's many trains of thoughts and experiences all over the world that ever and ever and ever tell us that we don't die. When the physical body actually flatlines, then consciousness, spirit, is still living outside the body. And so the propaganda, people, is that this is a physical reality. That's the propaganda, and that's what they're banging on about every single day, and that's what they use to control you. So what I'm saying is, when I'm saying there's no physical world here, there's nothing to be worried about, because the assertions are from many people that we don't in actual fact die. Spirit is infinite, and we go on in whatever form forever and ever and ever, because there is no physical matter in spirit. At the very least, it can't be found. They don't know what consciousness is, they don't know what spirit is, none of these things. But as far as the human being is concerned, some of us, we absolutely know that that is an existence, and that is what we are fundamentally. We fundamentally absolutely are conscious, and there's got to be something that's conscious. What is it? Spirit, then. This ineffable. You know, it's like Rene Descartes said, I think therefore I am. So that's the only thing that we could really be assured of. All the rest of it is fiction, and it's all created by the propaganda. It's created by Hollywood, it's created by the media, and so that's propaganda, my friend, not just a few lines on fucking Google, you know, that they quickly, you know, pass over. Then he goes on to say, I cannot verify the theories of Einstein nor those of Planck. I can only believe in things that I've experienced myself multiple times in many different scenarios. Second-hand knowledge is as good as a story. I can't afford to trust in a society that spews crazy, destructive notions. But you trust in a society which spews out a load of other bollocks every single day of your life. I mean, have you bought into the marriage institution? Have you bought into the mortgage institution? Have you bought into the banking institution? Have you bought into the lawyers institution? Have you bought into the politicians institution? Have you bought into the social institutions where they say you should do this and you shouldn't do that? Of course you have. You bought into it all. And now you're cherry picking something that possibly just may, you know, make you a little bit afraid. So you have to look inside your heart, my friend, and ask, are you afraid of that? And if you are, then you need to learn a great deal about it. And like you said, you've not looked into it. So I think there's a void within your knowledge that you need to fill. And then your opinion will most certainly change. I can't afford to trust a society that spews crazy, destructive notions. You can't afford to trust a society that does that. Well, we can't trust society anyway. Give me one instantiation where you can trust society. I've never found one in my life. And so there hasn't never been a single institution on the planet that I've encountered that I could say I trust. They're all potential fraudsters. They're all devious beyond measure. Even one falsity casts doubt on the rest of truth. Well, fuck me. What, you've never experienced one falsity? In all these different regions? So what you're saying there then, even one falsity, well, one falsity in politicians, one falsity in what a doctor's told you, one falsity in maybe a circular that you've got in your given vicinity about a proposal for what's going on and why, and goodness me, there's falsities in every single arena. You know, with your loved ones, with your partners, your friends, your colleagues, false, false, fake, 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 through and through. Nobody even knows when they're being fake or false because everything's fake and false. You know, it's just an absolute delusion that there's any truth in this reality. There is absolutely no truth, absolutely, completely and utterly no fundamental truth. Because when you get down to the so-called fundamental truths, well, we're in the realm of chemistry and biology and alchemy and philosophy and science and all that, and they can't find it. So why do you think you can? One-off experiences won't do because my mind also cooks up myths. So you've said this before, you know, I can't trust anything if I only have one experience to it. I need multiple experiences of the same thing. Well, okay, I mean, that's a fair enough assessment and assumption of the failings of your own mind, because we can't trust our own minds. And so how could we trust anybody or anything when we can't even trust our own minds, people? What can I do but remain sceptical to all information that my mind is privy to? Absolutely. So that's why I say there is no truth. But what I do say, the only semblance of truth you're ever going to get is your own subjective version of it. And what I'm saying in all of my videos is that I'm not speaking about what this person said and that person said, and this is why we should do X, Y, and Z. I'm saying, look, I've had certain experiences, and my experiences are X, and then I've listened and read and I've heard of other people saying Y, Z, and all the rest of it, and those things kind of fit with what my personal experience is. So my world is governed on my personal experience coupled with whatever I hear or learn about other people's experiences. And so what am I going to do if I reckon I've had Jesus, God and Satan, an angel speaking to me? What am I going to do with that? I'm going to look for a consensus of other people which have had similar experiences, and I've done that, and I've found that there's a great deal of efficacy in what they say, because their subjective experiences is equally as powerful and as reliable as mine. And we all have our own subjective experiences, and we all have different ones. And so if you haven't had Jesus, God or angels or the devil speaking to you, then there's no reason why you would want to delve into the depths of that and any other thing which doesn't appear to be real in this thing. If you've never seen a ghost or an apparition, or you've never been fondled in the middle of the night by some fucking invisible creature, if you've never had that, then you've got no reason to question anything. But I have. And so therefore I do, and I communicate this to you guys, and you know, I'm not asking you to accept anything. I'm mostly just saying, hey guys, what do you think about this? Have you had anything like this? How many times have you heard me say, what do you have to say about it? You know, I'm talking, philosophizing, bullshitting, whatever you want to fucking call it. And I'm always saying, what do you think about that? What's your experience? Come and have a chat. No, it doesn't happen, does it? So I'm like, what these fucking idiots don't think? They've never had any fucking experience. They're muppets. They're dumb as fuck. You know, so it just appears that, you know, I am the only thing in existence here. Solipsism. So then, you know, the general consensus of the world reiterates my solipsism. Can't you see how it works? You know, if I had, you know, 100 emails every single day refuting what I said, or even agreeing with what I said, then that will give me food for thought to maybe change my opinion, or maybe contemplate what I'm thinking is a certain truism as far as I'm concerned. But because I don't get that, I get nothing, I'm left to my own devices then, aren't I? The idea of there being no matter is ludicrous. Well, it's not ludicrous. You know, to tell that to Max Planck or Albert Einstein, or even people like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson, his famous line these days is, "I'm still waiting for someone to prove to me that we're not living or existing in a simulation." So therefore he's saying, as far as he's concerned, there's no physical fucking matter, and he's a cosmologist. Go figure, people. The idea of being no matter is ludicrous. Well, if you've been out of the body, it isn't ludicrous. If you've been in the deepest of meditations when you've entered into the quantum field, it isn't ludicrous. What's ludicrous is apparently your naivety on these things. You know, to be quite frank. And so, it goes against everything I've ever felt or seen. Well, there you go, because you haven't experienced it. This whole construct is about experience. We create our own reality. How? By our feelings. Life is a feeling, people. We can't rely on our mind, because our minds tell us lies all the time. This is what René Descartes said in 1600. You know, he sat down one night in front of his fire with a candle fucking burning, and he decided to dismantle every single one of his perceptions. His senses, and he could do this because they're all fallible. But the only thing he couldn't get outside of, because obviously he wasn't a proficient meditator, he probably never even meditated at all, but the thing he couldn't get outside of was there was something thinking all the time. But then the Buddhists say, well, he got it all wrong, because you know, when you don't think, that's when you really are the fundamental premise of what it is to be a human being, because you're in the quantum conscious field where there's no matter, there is no existence outside of awareness of awareness. And so unless you've had that experience, and of course, you know, you're out there with the rest of them, aren't you? I don't believe this and I don't believe that. It goes against everything I've ever seen or felt. It sounds similar to believing in a biblical God despite contrary evidence. Well, contrary evidence to who? To your experience, it seems. Again, it isn't contrary to my experience, because there's been this thing called Jehovah, which I absolutely 1000% knew was Jehovah, who was chastising me about my transgressions, about love. And then absolutely there was a notion of Jesus who was showing me physically in my physical body what unconditional love felt like. And for those of you that, you know, have been watching my videos for long enough, you'll have heard me speak about it time and time again. And if you're ever interested in the things I'm saying, people, then you might want to read about what I have to say about all these subjects in the greatest of detail, through my personal subjective experience. I'm speaking about my personal subjective experience, and I'm bringing in other brilliant people who have said this and discovered that and all that sort of thing. And so that's what my life's on. That's what my truth is based on. My truth isn't based on a few lines or excerpts on Google. My truth isn't based on what CNN or BBC is telling me. My truth is based on my subjective experience measured against the world as I perceive it. That's my truth. And so, Closer to God, you can buy that for £25. This one you can buy for £20. Reason being is because this one is a thicker version. It is 46 pages longer, and I can't change the price on that one, but I've changed the price on this one. And so I always put the link down to these books under most of my videos. So How can you trust these people who you have never even... Okay, let me continue a bit. With all due respect, what you're saying is an appeal to authority. How do you know that these people were great? Well, I mean, that's a general consensus, isn't it, across the board? I don't know whether anybody would ever be so bold or naive or silly to discount Albert Einstein's genius, or Max Planck's, or you know, Pauli, or Schrodinger, or you know, any of these people. They've gone down in history because every single learned person around them considered that there was a consensus that they were genius. And so I'm not about to get in any state of delusion as far as that's concerned, because within this program, within the fiction of it, there are certain rules and parameters and everything like that, but just to deny everything like that would be ridiculous. And so, of course, I'm rubbish at math. I wouldn't know where to begin to interpret these mathematical equations. But there's been millions of other people that have done that, and they're quite happy with the genius of these people. So, some things in life we have to accept people. And now, in relation to God, you know, lots of people don't accept God, and I've spoke to, you know, myriad so-called Christians, and they've never had any substantiation to their belief. And I'm like, you don't even know what faith is. You can't even explain to me what faith is. So how do you even know that you have it? It's just ridiculous. The amount of people out there that just believe. What can they do? If their minds are so lazy or so so lacking, if they're just so lacking, that there's nothing in there, nothing going on, then the only thing that's left to them is belief or disbelief. Isn't there? That's the only thing that's left. If they're not about to pursue knowledge, if they're not about to pursue their own subjective experience, then they're just left to believe or disbelieve. You read the Bible multiple times. Oh, let me just read this bit. With all due respect, what you're saying is an appeal to authority. How do you know that these people were great? Have you ever gone through their mathematics? No. How can you trust these people who you've never met, or even if their conclusions were actually theirs? Well, I mean, as I've said, to be sceptical is a very important thing. But there's limits to our scepticism, people. There is limits. And seeing how the whole physical world fundamentally is premised on these people's assertions, you know, Einstein with his special theory of relativity, his general theory of relativity, almost everything which came out of physics since Einstein announced those to the world seems to stem from that. And I was listening to two scientists the other night, and they're saying, well, look, all the people that got OBEs in recent years, they've all got them off the back of Einstein. So Einstein was the man. He was the one that placed the cornerstone to our reality. You have read the Bible multiple times, both New and Old Testaments, as well as listening to dozens of interpretations. You have seen the divergence in thought from its origin. Isn't it reasonable to assume that the knowledge we are surrounded by today is just as convoluted as it was back in the day? Well, I mean, there are lots of efforts to warp our consciousness, and that is a very, very deep and profound question that if we study, then we doubtless will end up in the Nietzschean abyss, because we will reduce everything through our doubt, because we can't prove anything. I can't prove there's a God in the sky. I can't prove there's atoms and molecules, or there's not. I can't prove that there's a quantum field. I can't prove consciousness. I can't prove nothing. There is nothing that I can prove. And so what can you prove? Can you prove anything beyond doubt to anybody? You may think you can. I can prove that I've got a glass in my hand. That's not proving nothing. All you're doing is just asserting a concept that is the general consensus that, you know, most people will agree with. That doesn't prove nothing, because you can look at it one way. There is no glass. What is a glass? Just a concept. Take glass away. What do you have in your hand? A tumbler? Well, take tumbler away. All of a sudden we're starting to get very bereft of an answer, aren't we? Look how easily our fiction of what we think we know just falls through the ground. All we've got to do is take language away. What have you left with? Zero, people. Zero. People believe in science today just as hard as they did the Bible back in the day. Instead of the phrase being God says, it's now scientists says. How few have actually done the experiments and not extrapolated the data in unreasonable ways? Well, exactly. It's all faith. So in my book, people who haven't bought my book, you might just want to pick this one up for £20, or it's £10 on Kindle. There is so much in this book. It is very, very vast in what it's got in between these 650 pages. It touches on a whole myriad of very, very massive concepts. And so it's a sort of book that people could read like the Bible forever, because what I speak about in there, from the very, very beginnings of times to present times, with all the massive so-called acknowledgements that we've got, or hypotheses that we've got, from what it is to be a human being, to the Big Bang Theory, and to the simulation theory, and to all different sorts of introspections in psychology and metaphysics and everything. Much of it's in that book, people. Yeah, so, well, the only thing we can do then, and here's my point again, is we have to retreat back to our subjective experience. We can't believe politicians. We can't believe doctors. If you go to a doctor and say, "Doctor, there's this going on in my body," he'll go, "Oh, yeah. Take that." And you go, I don't know what magic this doctor did, but he obviously got a magic portal under his fingertips there. Well, the magic portal he's got under his fingertips is almost exactly the same as the magic portal you've got on yours. If you Google your symptoms, then you're going to get probably what he's privy to. Only his is a little bit narrowed down, you know, by the pharmaceutical gods, because they narrow all symptoms down, all human symptoms down, into a prescription, people. And so you want to believe them about your fucking body? I don't. I always do my own fucking research before I'll go and see them, and I'll make up my own mind what treatment I fucking want on the premise of the information which is out there. It's not all in the doctor's fucking heads. The only thing the doctor's got in his head over and above me is personal experience. And if I ask him about personal experience, he probably won't want to tell me his personal experience, fear of I may sue him for saying something which turns out to be wrong. He's going to look on the computer what the pharmaceutical companies tell him to tell and prescribe. And so we can't believe nothing, people. Absolutely fucking nothing. You see, this little video, how long's it been? Can't see how long it's been. How many powerful subjects have I broached? How many opportunities have I given you to think about things yourself? Just this one Awaken Brave video has got such a massive amount of potential in it. And yet, you know, what will it get? A fucking 5 thumbs up and 2 comments. It's fucking ridiculous. What's ridiculous? You are ridiculous, people. You, the viewer, you are fucking ridiculous. You know, of course there's a few of you engage, but all of you that don't engage, is it because you just don't fucking know anything? You've got no opinions about anything? Well, doesn't that make you ridiculous? I mean, I think in this modern world, when we've got all the information that the world has ever known at our fingertips, if you don't fucking know any of it, and you can't compare that with your own personal subjective experience, you are pathetic at the end of the day. For all I know, these quantum physicists are cooking up the most preposterous ideas to see how gullible people are. Just like it was done in the past with God, Jesus and the rest of them. Well, that's a cause for debate. Do they really want to see how gullible we are? Or are they taking advantage of our gullibility? Are they taking advantage of our ignorance? I think that's a better line of approach. It's not that they want to see how gullible we are. They want to utilise our gullibility and extract our energy and power to give them. And then when they impress us with this research, then we'll be sending them money and we'll be voting them in to have jurisdiction over us. Yes, that's what they're looking for, people. They're looking to have your power directed to them, which lifts them up over and above you and makes them more autonomous. That's what they're looking for, people. Here was a quote of what was taught in certain schools in the past. Just because you are told that a large number of people say that they believe a thing, that does not mean that there are a large number of people, or even if there are, that they say that they believe that thing, or if they do say it. They do believe it if they do believe it. That they are right. Okay, so if a lot of people say something, then there's a general consensus that that's true and they're right just because they've said it. Well, it's you know, classic propaganda. Keep repeating something long enough and it will become true as far as the masses are concerned, because they're too lazy and ignorant to do their own research. So yes, but this is different, my friend. This is much, much more deeper and profounder. Because we're talking about the fundamental premise of the cosmos. Now, on one hand, you know, the powers that be are telling you that it was created by God, and then the other gods are telling you, well, it depends what you call God. It depends what you call God, because, well, we don't know much about it, to be fair. In actual fact, we only are beginning to understand just a little bit, only 4% of what the universe is constructed of. There may be a God behind all that, but we don't call it God. You know, we call it X, Y, and Z. In actual fact, we probably call it E equals MC squared or something like that. And so instead of having the tetragrammaton, which is Yahweh, people, those 4 letters which can't be pronounced, the ineffable, unspeakable word or name of God, well, science have E equals MC squared, which the vast majority of people couldn't fucking utter in any case. You know, if you asked them what was Einstein's theory of relativity, this, that, and the other, that's all you'd get. So they couldn't utter the name of that God, could they? And so this is what we're dealing with. The mere fact of consensus gathering around a given proposition tells us nothing of the truth or falsity of the proposition around which that consensus is said to adhere. No, it absolutely doesn't. So what do you do then? What do you rely on? Well, you rely on your own subjective experience. That's the only thing we can keep coming back to. And this is why people say, do you know how powerful you are? Do you know how much power you've got? Do you know your infinite awareness? Do you are shard of God consciousness? And Jesus said, truly I say unto you, you know, if you think the kingdom of God is up in the sky, the birds will get there before you. If you think the kingdom of God is in the ocean, the fishes will get there before you. The kingdom of God is within you and it's without you. It is everywhere. You are it. It is you. And so don't give your power away to fucking the tabloids or the media or scientists or religious folk. Take all that on board, listen to those idiots, but then apply your personal experience. And if you haven't had any personal experience, then really you are at the mercy of trying to interpret the best you possibly can any rational sense from all that shitfest going on out there. But me personally, I've had some very, very powerful subjective experiences, and I'm trusting in them. And so what I'm doing then with my subjective experiences, I'm looking to see what information out there matches my inner God. That's what I'm looking for, people. And that's what I'm speaking about. And if it doesn't match yours, then you've got to find your own, haven't you? I think I've explained why I remain chronically skeptic. Not that it matters, but it was an interesting excursion to pass the time. Well, that's an interesting line there you finished with. I think I've explained why I remain chronically sceptical. I think you should have said. Not that it matters. The whole premise of this email was that you considered that things do matter, things are matter, and now you're saying that you know, all that you think about it doesn't matter. Well, why is that? Why are you now relinquishing whatever grip or handle you have on this so-called reality, as if it doesn't matter? You're just throwing it away. And if you consider that it doesn't matter to you, then you will be at the mercy of people who do think it matters. There's lots of people out there that got very, very powerful opinions about what matters. And if you don't think anything matters per se within your own mind and body, then you'll be subject to them. So my advice to you is to consider that everything does matter, in that you have to find your core essence of what you are. That matters, people. And so I think I'm pretty well on track of discovering what I think matters to me. And I look around at the world and I go, well, it's a very, very bizarre thing. If I look at everything, then I will just dismantle it. And so therefore, what reality is there for me? You see, because if people don't want to have an adherence to the non-corporal reality idea, then just do a little bit of assessment yourself, and like I say, well, you know, pick something up and say, well, does this matter to me? Why does it matter to me? What is it? What does it represent? Well, it wouldn't matter to you what this was on a desert island if you're there on your own. Because the concept of glass or cup or utility or vessel for putting water in wouldn't need to be uttered on a desert island, because you've only got yourself. So the notion of a glass only matters if you're trying to communicate with other people who operate under a general consensus, you see. So outside of that, it is completely superfluous. There's no point in generating concepts or anything. You don't need them. On the desert island, if you have a glass, it might come in useful to gather water somehow. Moisture dripping from a palm frond or something like this. Oh, this would be a lifesaver, this thing. But you wouldn't need to know what it was called or create a concept for it. You see? So it's all about, you know, what our subjective requirements are at the end of the day. If your subjective requirements are safety and security, then you will have much more of a higher propensity to believe in religion or politicians. If you don't need any of that security, like I don't, then I discount every single thing except what I have personally experienced. Now, in relation to Jesus, what do I say about Jesus? Well, I mean, the Son of God, absolutely, or God himself, no, absolutely not. I'm not on board with that. But Jesus are of the Gnostics. We are all sons of God. God. Well, okay, we can all share in this notion of a higher being, of a creator. I don't have a problem with that. I can't say where we created from. I don't believe in that we came from fucking primates. You know, there's a whole myriad of things we can choose from out there. You know, Anunnaki spliced in and all different sorts of fucking things. So, you know, I don't believe any one over and above the other. But I have, apparently, as far as my own consciousness is concerned, had the privilege of Jehovah speaking to me, and I haven't had Enlil or Enki speaking to me, unless I was deceived, unless one of them made my mind think that Enki was Jehovah. All these sort of things, you know. At the end of the day, and why did I have this this notion of being spoken to by a god of the West? Well, because I'm born and bred in the West. If I was born and bred in the East, then probably it would have been Krishna or the Buddha that appeared to me and spoke to me. This is how it works, people. But whatever label we put on these things, there appears to be something there through a general consensus of human beings throughout thousands of years. And so I can't discount that. I intuitively know that I am the cosmos, that I am the creator on some level, and so I'm just looking for the bits that fill in all of my personal experiences and notions, a priori notions. And so I advise that we all do the same. So